I actually play that on the guitar.
Hey lady, you got the love I need.
Lady,
more than enough. Oh, darling, darling, walk a while with me. Oh, you got so much. So much. Oh. Many times I love.
Many times I rolled.
Many times I've came along the open road.
I'm glad you can hit the high notes, man. I didn't even attempt that.
Nigel Bennett, my friend, welcome to the show.
No, that's serious. I've been, that I didn't know what song you're going to put on, but I've been practicing that song on my guitar for probably 5 years, and I love it. I can't sing it worth hell, but it's a fun one to play around with.
It's my favorite Led Zeppelin song.
Right on.
Dude, I love Over the Hills and Far Away. Guys, welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh. And boy, do we have a special guest with us today, Mr. Nigel Bennett, back in the house, baby.
Thanks, Darius. It's awesome to be here.
Oh, dude, do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get going?
No. I'll give me a time to share on my Facebook, whatever you got going here. Sure.
All right. Guys, welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh. And as you guys know, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things: people who are living their passions to create greatness in the world. And my friend Nigel, as you may have known, if you've seen him once or twice before on the show, you'll know that he is all about the passion and he's all about the greatness. So I'm so excited to chop it up one-on-one with my man Nigel here. With that said, guys, a couple of things. First of all, we are live. Start a watch party. Ask us questions. My team's here on standby. We got Jade. We got, I believe, Hannah, but we for sure got Jade here. She'll be sending questions over my way and Nigel's way. So do not be shy. That said, my man Nigel, I want to give a quick little bio. Is that cool? Do you got
Yeah, can I just say something first?
Yeah, go for it.
I want to say that your book launch party was the best book launch party I've ever attended, and I wasn't even there physically. It was a killer. It was unreal. But I don't know if a lot of your listeners know that it's audio book too. I don't know. Oh, my thing just flipped off. It's an audio book as well. So Darius has got an audio version which I downloaded, and it's amazing. So if you don't have the hard copy, grab the audio version. It's killer. It's killer. So I don't know if everybody knew that, but there you go.
Oh, dude, you've been such a great support, my friend, and we've known each other for a few years now, and it's nice. I feel like we've gotten to hang out more during my book launch than we have at GOT. So it's so cool. It's so cool to see who comes into your life and the ways that we connect. And I appreciate the shout out on the audiobook. I'll talk about that once we get going here, because I want to tell you a quick story about that. But I do want to tell you guys a little bit about Nigel. For those of you guys that saw, he was on with the three CEOs, and that was super fun to have you guys on the show. And not only did I have you on the show, but you guys kicked off the live-a-thon for the book launch party, and that was super fun. You guys were the first people that got to do the sing bling or swing, and you guys were great sports about it. So I really appreciated that. It was super cool to have you guys. But Nigel and I, we met at MIT, as you guys may have met or who have seen the show, and it was really cool. I don't think it was 2 years ago. You did a whole talk about how you kind of grew up, and I will tell you guys this, and if Nigel's up for it, maybe we'll talk about it a bit on the show. But Nigel's got a really insane, intense, global experience, and he had a very I want to pick the right word, crazy experience with your family. That if you feel comfortable, we could talk about it. And it was funny. I didn't tell you this, but I mean, not that we have the same upbringing, but I've had a pretty intense upbringing as well. And so maybe we could touch on that a bit if you'd like. But
absolutely.
As Nigel Bennett is a serial entrepreneur, he's a speaker, philanthropist, and he's founder of AquaGuard Spill Response. which you guys are in the oil space. Is that correct?
Yeah, oil spill response. So BP Horizon oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, cleanup, stuff like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
And when you're in the oil, like that sounds like businessy and boring. But when you start to hear some of his stories, you're like, that's fucking gnarly. Like it's like helicopters in Egypt and dude, we're going to talk about some fun stuff on this show today. Nigel is also the author of the best-selling book Taking the Leap, so I'd love to talk about that a bit as well. But man, welcome to the show, my friend. It's so good to have you.
I got a hard copy here. I don't even you can see it, but there you go.
You guys, so I want to tell you two really quick stories about Nigel. So we met at MIT, and he got up on the stage and told this really intense story about you're in business with your father. Is that correct?
I was for 10 years. Yeah. Way back.
And so we didn't really know each other that much, but you got a great soul and you're a heart-centered guy. And like, I was always like, man, that's, I don't know Nigel that well, but I like him a lot. And I'm kind of like that too. Like, you don't have to know me to like me. But so when you see that, and it's not because we're trying to be liked, we're just kind of are what we are, And I think that has a lot to do with having a kind soul, and people see that in you. And dude, you have that, and I actually think that comes out of being brought up around maybe harder circumstances and tougher environments. And there was a guest on the show who talked a bit about this, that 20 to 25% of the population has a very sensitive neurosystem, that our actual neurology is more sensitive than normal people's, and I kind of get the sense that you may be part of that world, that's
actually something that they found with ADD and dyslexia too. People like that have that, I don't know what it is, but that little extra something,
Yeah, well, it's just you take information in, and you're in this other way that's maybe less traditional, but so you kind of, it's like deaf people that can like have great eyesight, or blind people that can like hear like bats, you're holistically you make up for the sensing in a different way, and you're 100%. It's just you're not 20 20 20 20. You're like 80 10 10 10, right?
Right. Interesting.
But the other thing that caught my attention with Nigel was, so that was like my first like big impression of you, man. And my second one was, it was kind of even part of that, and then carried afterwards, was this thing you were doing. You were sleeping on the streets, like to like raise money, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was super. And this is like, you live in Canada. It's not like you live
in November. In November, we're sleeping in the alleyways. Yeah.
So by the way, guys, I didn't really know Nigel that well. This is just like me hanging out passively with this guy that's in a group of 75 people, and him just telling us these crazy stories. And I was like, I want to get to know the guy better. And it didn't happen until my book, but I've been grateful for it, man. It's really cool to get to know you. Yeah,
likewise. It's been awesome getting to know you too, Darius, and where you're coming from within your book, and that place, your core values and whatnot. I've been really, looking at that over the past so many years, but it really hit me over the head like 10 years ago. And my life changed. Once I figured a bunch of stuff out, my life completely changed. So, yeah.
So do you mind talking a little bit about your background and like how you've kind of where did you start and how did you get to where you're at?
Wow. I mean, if you want to go like, you can go way back to like when I got out of high school. I barely graduated out of high school. And the next day I was on a flight to Venezuela. My father, I worked for my father's environmental mapping company for 10 years. So I was in Venezuela, Brazil, China, Egypt, Indonesia, Malaysia, like 9 or 10 countries for 10 years. And the first couple of days I was doing an overflight over Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela. And we were coming up the western side of the lake, close to Colombia. And there was some hailing over the headsets, and it was all in Spanish. And I was hanging out of the helicopter on the Skag, and I was taking photographs because I was photographing the coastline for environmental degradation and things like that, and oil spills. And there was this hailing coming in, and it basically was the FARC guerrillas that are still operating there today. This was in 1980.
Wow.
And they were taking pot shots at our helicopter, trying to kind of shoot us out of the sky and telling us to get the heck out of the way. And so we veered really quickly, and this guy grabbed me, and I pulled me inside the helicopter, and we veered away. And that was a real eye opener for me, because I was probably 18 years old at the time. And I'm from Vancouver. I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and everything here was relatively, clean and nice, and we have lots of wilderness. And that was my first real eye opener of pollution and degradation around the world. And then, I found myself in all these other countries. But there's one thing that really shook me is when I was in Egypt. So I was in Egypt for about 5 years on and off. We had an office in Alexandria, and I was going to do an overflight over the Sinai Peninsula. And I think I told you the story. The Sinai Peninsula, I was going to go up the side of the peninsula to take some photographs and do some mapping work. And I got to a helicopter base, which was down on the Egyptian side of the Gulf of Suez, just about 3-4 hours south of Suez. A little military checkpoint with a helicopter base, and I drive up with an Egyptian fellow, and I get out, and there's this big Southern American boy, and he kind of waddles up, and he's got a bit of a limp, and his name was Johnny, and he said, "I'm here to take you on an overflight." And I said, "Yeah, that's great. Could we go over the Sinai? I want to go up the west side of the Sinai." And he goes, boy, there's certain areas that I can take you, and there's certain areas that I cannot take you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm totally aware of that. And there were still minefields up and down the coast there from the 6-day war with Israel. And I got stuck in a minefield at one point, and that's a whole different story. It was terrifying. So I got in the helicopter. I got in a minefield. Sorry about. I don't know where that came from, but yeah.
That's a story for another time.
That was 3 days later. 3 days later, I got stuck in a minefield that they thought had been demined, but it hadn't, and they had to guide me out of it, and jumping on rocks and shit. And yeah. Anyway, I'm still here, and I still have all my tackle, so I'm okay. So I got in the helicopter. I get in the helicopter with Johnny, and I put on the headset. I'm in the co-pilot seat, and we have a couple of Egyptian executives in the back. And I had the microphone. He said, "Okay, now I can talk to you. What I'm going to do is we have to take these guys over to the Sinai. We're going to drop them off, and then I'm going to take you to some areas to take a look. We're not supposed to take you." So we lifted off, and I had my camera. I had a camera in a bag, and I had it kind of between my legs. And there's a glass floor in the front seat, the co-pilot seat. And he looked over and he said, "Nigel, whatever you do, do not let the guys in the back seat see that camera, because if they do, they could report us and they could have us arrested for spying." So, I was just shitting. So I kept the camera down, and we landed. We let these two guys out, and then we lifted off and we headed north up the Sinai. And I looked out of the front of the helicopter, and all I saw was pipeline after pipeline that had been ruptured, and the oil was flowing into the Red Sea. It was just like a sea flowing into a sea. Like it was, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So I was banging off photographs of this stuff. We landed back at the helicopter base, which was called Ras Garib. And he said, "Nigel, I know what you're trying to do. I really don't think what you're doing will make a difference, but take these photographs and show them to the people that need to see them." And he says, "I know that, you're a young guy. I know that you really want to make an impact in the world and want to make a difference, but I really don't think you can." And that was it. I never saw him again. But that affected me for the rest of my life. That, you don't that pissed me off. That's basically telling me, I can't do something, so therefore I'm going to go do it. So from that day forward, well, I'll tell you another little story. I was in Egypt. Our contract was over, this 5-year contract, and my father was flying into Egypt to finish things up in Cairo, and I was in Alexandria, closing up our office and our apartment. And I had a phone call from one of our guys, and I drove from Alexandria to Cairo, and he said, "Your father's missing." So basically, my father had been arrested. Long story short is that my father had been arrested. I basically had to escape out of the country to help get him out of prison from the outside, because if I stayed and if they got me, it would have been not very good. So he was in prison there for 6 or 8 months. Finally, one of these witnesses that was against him died in prison, so they had to let him go. But I got back to Vancouver, and I realized that things weren't really on the up and up, and I couldn't live in that environment. So I basically took my sister and another guy, another engineer, and we broke off of my father's company and we formed AquaGuard Spill Response, because I had been in all these countries. I've been in 10 different countries and I saw horrific things. And I had customers going, we need your help. We need equipment. We need equipment to contain this stuff. We need equipment to recover it. And so that's what we did. We started a little tiny company, and we started manufacturing containment barriers and skimming systems. And, in about 10 or 15 years, we'd probably done business in about 100 countries in about 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And it took me all over the world, and the story just kept on going and going. So it's been quite the journey. And I was having a really hard time, like you with your business. You get into that, your business gets to a certain size, and you have all these distributors, and it's just like a bee's nest. And I was having a really, really hard time. And I call it the doorknob effect, because I'd go, and I think I shared this with you before. I'd go to my office every day and I would touch the door, and it was like it was vibrating, because I knew as soon as I stepped in, it was chaos. So I'd stand there, take a deep breath, and I'd open the door and I'd step through, and it'd be, Nigel, I need this, I need that. We've got this problem. My whole life was chaos. Mm-hmm. And I had a buddy of mine that had joined this group called the Young Entrepreneurs Organization, or now it's called EO. And he was a 300-pound lineman from the Canadian Football League, huge boy. And he had just finished playing pro ball, started an insurance company, and joined YEO. And he grabbed me by the scruff of the neck, like he literally grabbed me, and he said, Nigel, you need help. You need to join this peer group. And I'm like, I have no time. I've got a young family. My business is chaos. I haven't got time to go and hang out with a bunch of, guys like this. And he said, and he grabbed me and he took me to a meeting. I got recruited, and I was in EO for about 18 years. And it was the best decision that I ever made. And I also get into a forum group, which like yourself. And that led me to MIT, where I met you, Darius. All part of that whole journey. It's just been absolutely insane,
Yeah, that's wild, man.
Yeah.
So you, obviously your business, is this. You're doing good in the world. You're cleaning up these messes. What for you? Like, and then you've been doing it for a long time, right? We're talking about
since I was 16, really. Yeah.
Right. 1980 was 40 years ago. Right?
Yeah.
So by the way, you got like a young soul. I would never have guessed you're.
I'm 58 now, so I was doing some of the work when I was still in high school, when I was 16. Yeah.
Yeah, I would never have guessed that you're close to 60 years old. Seriously, like you look 10 years younger than you are.
You know something, Darius? It was interesting when I joined everybody at Gathering of Titans in Boston at MIT. I was kind of really hesitant to join a group like that. Again, I was getting into a group where I thought everybody was smarter than me. I'm dyslexic and I have ADD, and I thought I just did not belong. As Todd Palmer says, I had that itty bitty shitty committee saying that I don't belong. I really don't belong here. And I really didn't. And I almost vomited going up that driveway to the Endicott house. But when I sat down at the back of the room, I just hired a coach to help me straighten things out about 2 months before that. This guy, right. Kevin Lawrence. And I was sitting in the back of the room, and Vern Harnish, he was our facilitator. He stands in front of us, and he basically, I'm at the very back. I'm hiding at the back. And he asked the question, he said, how many of you entrepreneurs, there's 75 of you in this class, guys and girls, how many of you have a coach? And I kind of started to put my hand up. I thought, well, everybody has a coach. These guys are all geniuses. They're all geniuses. They all have coaches. And he said, only 3 of you out of 75 business owners have a coach? And I looked up and I was shocked. I thought I was kind of the one coming in late here. And he said, let me tell you. He said, every successful business person or human has one or multiple coaches. He used Michael Dell as an example at that time. It was and Steve Jobs and et cetera, et cetera. And he said, you can't do life alone. You can't do life alone. We can't. As entrepreneurs, we're very much alone. We're in our little tower here alone, and we don't like to take advice from people, and we just can't do life alone. So I really learned a lot from our conclave there over the years on things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I actually took a hiatus this year from coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
I took a break. I felt like I was like jumping from one coach to the next.
Right.
But I agree that there's a time and place for it, and people, there's always an excuse why you can't do it. There's always an excuse why you shouldn't get in shape, and there's always an excuse why you can't build your business. And there's excuse.
Yeah.
And there's always an excuse why you can't, why you can over program yourself, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't take a break. So it's a spectrum, right? And people with an achiever mindset, a lot of people who don't have an achiever mindset have an excuse why they can't achieve.
Right.
And people with an achiever mindset make an excuse why they can't relax.
That's right.
And I'm a great example personally of an overachiever, which is not a bragging. It's a person that can't relax. Like I can't. My book launch is a great example of me putting my entrepreneurial energy into something to make it absolutely like the biggest thing you've ever seen from nothing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's a really great talent to have if you want to be an entrepreneur and start businesses.
Yeah.
Where it fucks you is where you want to be a good dad sometimes.
Exactly.
But where it fucks you is where you can't just sit still with yourself, which everything has value, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's around finding that balance. So let me ask you a question, because having had that imposter syndrome, then probably my guess is you realized at some point that you weren't an imposter. You felt like you belonged.
Yeah.
Well, but then
probably only now. Only the past couple of years.
Just now? Is it?
No, but it took a while. It took a while. And I still have that, I don't do good in crowds. I just always feel that I'm not worthy of being there, really.
What do you think? What do you think? Where do you think that comes from?
I don't know. Because I'm dyslexic and have ADD, and I was terrible in high school, and I did get into college, British Columbia Institute of Technology, and I went to the mechanical engineering program there, and they kicked me out after 6 months. And but I clawed my way back in, and I agreed with the dean that I would take all the courses that I failed at night school and take a full day load if he let me back in. But what I did do was I was able to surround myself with really good people, and that helped me get through. And basically that's what I've been able to do with my life, is have really amazing people around me and lift each other up. It's just been, I've been super fortunate that way. And I've learned how to do that, I think. And I've also learned how to take breaks. When I broke off and formed AquaGuard, my sister and I were pretty heavily into mountaineering and rock climbing and all this stuff. And so we would toggle off. Like I would go off on a trip. She would head off to climb some big mountain in northern Canada, and I would go off to Nepal with my wife now, Reiko, and we'd do some trekking and climbing. And we'd come back, and I'd be totally refreshed, and I would be able to think. And I got into a rhythm of doing that my whole life, and I do that today. And I call it, I really, people talk about this life balance, but I always see life balance as you have to give one up for the other. But a rhythm, you get into a rhythm, you get into flow, you get into a dance. That's the life rhythm. And it's taking those breaks, getting refreshed, coming back all jazzed up to take on the next thing. But just pushing the pedal to the metal constantly, we hit that burnout. And it's not a good place to be. So I've really found over the years to get into that life rhythm. And I do it all the time. I take weeks, months off. And I took a year. I was able to, I think I shared the story at GOT that I had an offer. I had an offer to buy my business by a British company back in 2009, 2010. And the deal was all done. And then a lady came to speak with us at GOT called Lynn Twist. She wrote a book called The Soul of Money. Amazing person. Should be an amazing guest for you. I don't know if you had her on. No. Incredible. She worked with Mother Teresa in India. She ran the Hunger Project globally for years. And then she formed a group called the Pachamama Alliance out of San Francisco that works with the indigenous tribes of the Amazon. Oh, so yeah. So she was a speaker along with Brother David, this monk. Brother David was incredible. And then Lynn came on and talked about money is if you use money for good, it's a good thing. And, money flows in and it flows out just as fast. But if it stays still, it gets stagnant. And she invited us to go deep into the Amazon rainforest with her to visit with a tribe called the Ashwar that had only had contact with the outside world for about 10 years and only through their group. So I agreed to go, and I took my family. There's a couple of guys in our GOT class. They came as well. And we did a ceremony, but I was right in the middle of selling my business. The BP Horizon oil spill was in full flow, and we were sending equipment and people to help fight this thing. But I had to go to the Amazon. I had to go. There was something calling me to go to the Amazon. So I went, I took my family, I did a ceremony. And what I think now is that my deep conscience was talking to me. So I was doing a ceremony. It was an ayahuasca ceremony deep in the Amazon, laying on a banana leaf beside the Amazon River. We had shamans. We had the whole. I had no idea what we were getting into, and I had this vision. Of this face looking at me, and it was basically telling me, Nigel, that you have a great responsibility. You have a great responsibility with your life. You have a great responsibility with your business, and don't sell your business. Take your business off the table, leverage the crap out of your business and the contacts and the network that you've built for over the past 30 years to do good in the world. And I came out of this trance. I was just like, what the heck? My deal's done. The deal's done. The deposit's paid. I flew back to Vancouver, and then I flew to London, and I pulled the deal off the table.
Oh, wow.
Pulled the deal off the table. And I then came back, and then I bought out my partner of 30 years, and then had another guy that had been with me for many, many years basically take over and run the business and become my new partner. And that's what I've done for the past that was 2012. So in the past 8 years, I've leveraged my platform, and that's what I've been doing. I've been like my core value. My core value is to give and to help and to connect amazing people doing amazing things around the world. And I've been doing that, and I jump out of bed every day. I wrote a book. I've been doing these podcasts, and it's just been the most liberating, incredible experience. And I also, after I set the business up to run without me in 2012 or 24, it was 24. Then in 2014, I took a year off, and I took my whole family, and we traveled the world to 17 different countries off the beaten path. We were in Myanmar and Bhutan and Colombia, and it was the most incredible thing that I'd ever done. And working with my coach, Kevin Lawrence, I had this asteroid belt of things. And my ultimate goal was to get my freedom back. He asked me when I engaged him, he said, Nigel, if somebody came up to you today, how much would you sell your business for? And I said, $1. just I knew $1. Free. And he goes, okay, man, let's just cool down a bit here. That's not a good place to be in. And I said, yeah, I just want my freedom back so bad. I want to go rock climbing and mountaineering again. I want to have travel the world. I'm living in this bee's nest, and I deal with this doorknob effect every day for 20 something years. And so basically we had all these things over. It took several years to knock everything off, set things up, set the business up to run without me. But there was one thing left at the top of my list. And Kevin called me at my house, and he said, Nigel, there's one thing that you haven't accomplished on your list. And I'm like, yeah, okay, what's that? He goes, what's the most important thing? That's the thing that you wanted, is your freedom. And I'm like, okay. He said, it's taking a year off and traveling with your family. And I'm like, yeah, but like you said, but all the buts came out. And he said, okay, well, let's sit back. Is your wife there? And I said, yeah, she's here. Well, would you ask her if she's game to go? And I yelled across the kitchen. I said, there's no way she can go. And she yelled back, she said, let's make it happen. And so we set it up within a month, and we didn't plan anything. We just left. And we ended up traveling for a year, 17 different countries, took our kids, homeschooled our daughter, and was the most liberating experience I've ever had. And what we were working, we were also wanted to work in some orphanages. So we were working in an orphanage in Myanmar and different places like that, and doing volunteer work. And it was absolutely incredible. And looking right now at the world with the COVID epidemic and everything like that, our window was like this without COVID, to be able to do that with our kids at that perfect age, to be able to do that with the business. It would not be possible now.
Oh, yeah.
with COVID, with our kids getting older, they're all in their 20s and they're not going to, I mean, they've got significant others and so as entrepreneurs, we work, and we're putting out fires all the time. And we pretend that we're doing it for our families, but at the end we're killing our families and we're not having a relationship. So and I always say that no business crisis is worth losing your family over. And it happens day after day after day after day. It's that time. And the one thing that COVID has, I think that COVID has done, it's as terrible as it is, it's forced us to come home. It's forced us to spend time with our families and our kids. And they may drive us crazy, but I guarantee that, a 2-year or 3-year-old now, when they're 14 or 15, will go, you know what, Mom, Dad, thank you. That was a great time we had together. So yeah, I've been rambling on here, but yeah.
Oh, it's cool. How old were your kids when you guys took off?
My daughter was in the 9th grade. So she was 14, 15. Yeah. And my son had just graduated high school. So he was 17, 18. Oh, so he was free. He was free. And my other son was in university. So he kind of came in and out. Yeah, he was at university. So he flew in and out. But the other two, the cool thing is being being the entrepreneur, I was doing some work while I was traveling. So I would go to London and I would go meet the IMO. And I'd do a presentation to the IMO, International Maritime Organization. And I take my son with me. And everything lit up. When you brought your son into the meeting, it totally cut the ice. And they're asking, what's he going to do? So I bought him a cheap suit, one of the cheap suits things, put him in a suit, put him a tie on him. Off we went to London. And then we were in places like Brazil, and we're offshore supply vessels. So we're going on a little tender, and he's having to climb up the rope and get onto this ship that's pitching in the seas and learning how to run heavy duty equipment and coveralls. And so it was a really great experience. And and then my kids ended up going to acting school in London.
Oh, wow.
They wanted to do something. And I'm like, what do you guys want to do? And they said, we want to do some acting. I'm like, acting? Okay. Best places in the world are either New York or London for acting school. So we were in London, so we put him in a 6 weeks acting school, and my son had been working with me at all these different things in my business for almost a year. And we're in Brazil, and he goes, Dad, I got to go home. I'm like, okay, you got to go home. He says, I want to be an actor. I've got to go. I'm going to go to full-time acting school. So he flew home, auditioned to get into the acting school. Now he's an actor, and he's doing movies and TV shows, and nice. he did a Christmas. He was a guy in a BMW commercial a couple of Christmases ago, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just been wild. It's been really wild.
That's so cool.
So
man.
Fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah. So you stepped out of the business 8 years ago?
I'm involved, but I'm involved. I say half a day a week, but it's not even half a day a week. I have the reporting. I get all the reporting, and I'm going down. I'm actually at Whistler. We have a place at Whistler, and our offices are in Vancouver. I live in Vancouver. And I'm going down on Wednesday. We're having an R&D meeting, so I'm taking part in the R&D meeting. So I'm involved, but not.
Is your role like chairman?
Yeah. I'm just I call myself founder and principal. Yeah.
And so, and your partner that you brought on, the gentleman that had worked for you, is he the CEO?
He's the CEO. He had been working with us since he was about 18. But what I found is I wanted my freedom back so badly quite a few years ago that I was kind of scouting and stealing CEOs and general managers from my competitors. Okay. And they would come in, they would work with me for 1 to 5 years, and it just didn't work out. But I didn't realize that I was organically growing these people inside the business. And this gentleman, his name's Cam, he was the natural leader. He went from sweeping the floor at 18 to estimating, to visiting suppliers, to sales, to financials. He was doing all this, and I hadn't realized it. So he was the perfect guy, and he's turning 40 this year, so he's the perfect guy, and he's been running it for 8 years.
Wow. And it sounds like that's worked out pretty well.
It's worked out really well. Yeah. I mean, he's very go. He's a great guy, but it's given me my freedom. The one thing that I wanted my freedom back, and is how do I set it up? And with the help of my coach Kevin, and I was able to set this up. So I'm involved, but as much as I want to be.
Have you considered an ESOP? I don't know if they have those in Canada. They have them in the States, like to ESOP strategy. So in the United States, some people they call them employee stock option programs.
Yes. Oh yeah.
They'll set them up as an exit strategy, because it's like, well, like, you're probably at a stage where, how many more years would you say you want to be involved in the business? 10, 15 more years probably at the most.
Yeah. And I'm looking at strategic alliances and things to take things to another level. I mean, all sorts of things like that. It's the one thing that I learned, and this was a good one at the GOT last year that we were together, is that, and I know there's some GOT people that have had major exits, and there was a couple of speakers that came and they had major exits and sold their businesses, and they said, a big bag of cash is great, but it can be really dangerous. And a few of the guys had, not in our GOT class, but these speakers, they had sold their business, had a major liquidation event, but then it was party time, and they blew a lot of the money, and they said if it came around, they wouldn't do it again. And the one gentleman said, and this really resonated with me, said, unless you know your life purpose, unless you have a crystal clear view of your life purpose, do not sell your business until you get to that point. And so that's the path that I've been going through. So I've been, my family and I, we've been doing a lot of philanthropy work and finding what my life purpose. And now I'm in a really, really good spot. I just love what I'm doing.
What, sorry, I'm running late for another meeting, and I want to keep us going here. We're near the last 10 minutes of the show. And so my question for you is, when you say it sounds like you found your life purpose, how would you define that?
Yeah, it kind of, it morphs and it changes. So for me, I was always kind of the environmental guy. I was always connected with the environment. I was always out in the bush or in the woods or on the ocean, surfing, scuba diving. And that's what that's what I've been really leveraging. But what I really, really enjoy doing is connecting amazing people that are doing amazing things around the world, because there's so many people that are doing incredible things, but they don't know about each other. Mm-hmm. And to create this massive energy ball of good, we need to connect everybody. So that's what I found that I have more fun doing is connecting amazing people doing amazing things. And that brings along everything else that I've been working to achieve, Yeah. So
tell us, I'd like to hear a little bit about your book. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was, it's a life journey. It's a life journey book. It's just a lot of fun writing. It took me 3 years. I started it on our trip. I actually started writing it in the jungles of Malaysia back in 2015, and it took me a while, but it's just been great, and it's been really well received, better than I could ever imagine. I wrote the book really for something to maybe give my kids, so they knew a little bit more about me. But then it turned to something much bigger than that. And I found that in the entrepreneur, it's been really, really well accepted in the entrepreneurs circles, and also with young people. I've had so many young people coming out of university, but really don't want to do they don't know what they want to do with their life. So my book is called Take That Leap, Risking It All for What Really Matters. And that's what really matters in your life. So if we are considering, there's so many people in the world that are stuck. They're stuck and they're just on that treadmill, and they just been on the treadmill. But they kind of consider, I've always wanted to do this. It's take that leap and do what you love, do what you want to do what you're, what's calling you, what your life purpose is calling you to do. So that's a little bit in a nutshell there.
And so what is it? How does it, is it more of like an inspirational type of story, or is it?
No, it's sharing stories. It's all sharing stories. There's a lot of books of, how to become a billionaire, how to. I did not want to write a book like that. I didn't want to tell people what to do. I wanted to share stories and people, if they're able to get 1, 2, 3 nuggets out of it that they can actually apply to their life, I've done my job.
Nice.
So it's like the whole EO sharing experience. We don't tell people what to do, in our forums. We share experience, and people take value out of the experience. So I wrote it in that format.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like a Gestalt to me.
Right, yeah.
I'm like that's an EO play.
Yeah.
For those of you that are not familiar, in Entrepreneurial's organization, we have confidentiality forums. So these are groups of CEOs that come together, usually on a monthly basis, and you're not allowed to give advice at all. Like it's against the rules. You can't solicit each other, and you can't give advice. Yeah. And so they train you in this practice known as Gestalt, which is where we share our experiences without giving advice. So you can't say, well, if I was you, this is what I would do. I would say, well, when I had the same situation happen to me, this is how I handled it. So, or when I had a situation similar to what you're describing, or here, your situation reminds me of this thing that happened to me, and I'm going to tell you what happened and what I did. Exactly. And you should do this. You don't finish with that because you know what I like about Gestalt, Nigel? Yeah. What I like about Gestalt is it gives you, number one is the other person can't blame you if they do it.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I listen to you, Darius, and you fuck my life up.
That's right.
Hey, I take no responsibility for any fucked up thing I say. What it does is it does mitigate from that happening, which is important. But more importantly, it makes it where, to your point, and it sounds like your book does this, where I could take from it whatever I find valuable. Yes. And you're respecting that I'm a smart person that can figure things out for myself, while at the same time teaching me something potentially that can help me. So
exactly. And that's the way I wrote it. And that's, I mean, a quick example is I did a talk, and there was a lady, a business owner in Winnipeg. And I shared the story about selling my business for $1. I said, I was so stressed out. I just wanted my freedom back. I was ready to give my business away for $1. She sent me a message after, and she said, as soon as she heard that, she broke down in tears because it's resonated so much with how she was right now. So that's basically what I wanted to do, is I just wanted to share my experience. This is my experience. This is basically what I did. This is kind of how I got to where I am. And there's so many things in the book that if I didn't do this, I wouldn't be here. If I didn't do this, if I didn't get dragged into EO by the football player, I wouldn't be talking to Darius right now. I swear to God, that's true. And I wouldn't have gone to MIT. I wouldn't have done that. So I owe so much to Trevor Bowles. He played with the Edmonton Eskimos. And I talked to him the other day. I said, Trev, do you realize what that one little thing that you did for me has done for my whole life and my family and all these people? He says, you have no idea. And so I share all those little nuggets.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, we're ending the end of the show here, but like, what's like the big takeaway? If you could give everybody one, like your most valuable piece of advice, what would be your most valuable piece of advice that you would give to?
Well, for me, it's, it sounds simple. It's, don't sacrifice your family for a business or a business crisis. It's not worth it.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Nigel, I appreciate you coming on, my friend. Where can people find you? Where can they get your book? Just lay it out there.
Yeah, they can get everything at my book's on Amazon. It's on Audible. It's on Amazon, but you can get the links through nigeljbennett.com.
Nigel. Okay. So guys, nigeljbennett.com. We'll make sure that's in the comments section. Check out Nigel's book. Great book. Amazing stories coming from you. And like Nigel is like, I mean, you're a mellow guy, so I feel like your demeanor understates some of the intensity of your life and some of these amazing stories. You are an incredible person. I'm so glad that we've got.
Thanks, Darius. Means a lot. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's you make it easy, my friend.
And grab Darius's book. It's killer.
I was gonna ask you a question on your book. Did you narrate it or did you get a narrator?
No, I narrate it. I was told that if it's your book sharing your experience, Nigel, you got to read it. So I have a friend that has a studio, so I'm very fortunate. But it scared me because he had just finished Elvis Costello's audiobook like a week or so before mine. I'm like, oh, you're kidding. Elvis Costello, now you got me in there. And we had a riot. doing it. And it was just so much fun. So yeah, I read it. Dyslexic guy reading his own book, I tell you.
I kind of wish I had read my own book now. I didn't because I was like, oh, I don't want to screw this up. And because of COVID, it would have cost like more for me to like read it myself. And I was like, well, I can get a pro to do it. And then I could guarantee it won't get screwed up. But what's funny is I built a course that I'm launching on my book. that's coming out this month, I think, and hopefully, and yeah, by the end of the month it'll be out. And I ended up, the book is a big part of the script of the course, and I read the whole thing, and I was like, oh, I should have totally read my book.
Right.
But yeah, the audiobook creation is an interesting process.
It is. The first couple of days are a little bit scary, but then you get into the flow of it. And the amazing thing is editing, you can take out all the but, oohs and ahs. Like they just cut. Like you can see it in a string, and it's, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I hired this guy. I did a casting call out of LA. And, do you remember there was a TV show in the late 80s, early 90s, Perfect Strangers?
Yeah.
I'll talk. His name is Pierce Bronson, I think, or Pearson Bronson or something like that. So he was one of the guys that I could have hired.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Balky.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Anyone that knows Perfect Strangers is like Balky, and I'm like, Balky, dad from 90210, the groom from Father of the Bride. They're all these like,
hilarious
actors. But I ended up going with this guy who's actually he's a Juilliard trained actor. He did. I thought he did a good job, but I had to do it over again. I would have done what you did, which I would have read it. But live and learn.
Well, it's just another experience. Well, you can do it for your next one.
Yeah, shit. I'm gonna get to this one, man. But guys, so much fun with you, Nigel. So much gratitude having you here, my friend.
No, thanks, Darius.
Dude, you're the man. Guys,
you're killing it. You're killing it with your book. Just love it. I love the stuff that you're doing. Fantastic.
Thank you so much. Guys, check out nigeljbennett.com. We have the email in the notes, as well as the Take a Leap Amazon link. So go check that book out. And if you're bored, check out my book, Core Value Equation. Audiobooks out there as well. And if you've read the book, leave me a review. I'm trying to build up my reviews. I would appreciate some reviews. Audiobook, there you go. That's
audiobook. It's on audiobook too. There you go.
There you go. And guys, if you love what you're hearing, check us out at www.therealdarius.com. Sign up for the newsletter. We're really going hot and heavy with that. Starting to add some great content on the site, and you get updates on the shows. And last but not least, you can check us out on YouTube. So please subscribe, and or at The Real Darius M on Facebook for updates on the show. With that said, having so much fun. Thank you so much, Nigel.
No, thanks, Darius. It's been a riot. I've been really looking forward to this. This is awesome.
Yeah, so much fun. Me too, my friend. And guys, today we have one more show for you for the week. Barbara Ludwig is a repeat offender. It's part 2 of her show. We'll be on here in about 2 hours. So we're looking forward to that. And everyone, take care. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Nigel.
Nice. Thanks, Darius.
Peace, everybody.